Welcome to another tutor short provided by the Educational Support Services Department of Lehigh Carbon Community College in Schnecksville, PA, just outside Allentown. These videos provide key learnings for English and other writing-based courses provided here at LCCC. Please remember that the Educational Support Services Department does provide walk-in tutoring 5 days a week. Online writing tutoring is also available through the college website. Today we're going to talk about common word errors. These are errors that usually come from students misplacing one word for another. The first kind of category of these is common homophone errors. That means, homophone just means words that sound the same. One of the most common that we see is your and your. And you can hear when I say that, sounds identical. But one has Y-O-U apostrophe R-E, and the other is Y-O-U-R. Just very simple. It's pretty easy to remember the difference between these two if you can just remember what this apostrophe means. An apostrophe, in this case, means that you've got a compound word. You've got a contraction. Two words have sort of contracted down. They've been smushed down and become one. In this case, it means you, apostrophe R-E, you are. So, you are is sort of shortened to your. Which is actually not something you want to use in a lot of academic writing anyway, because it's kind of informal. It's kind of, some people consider it kind of sloppy, so you probably want to avoid that generally, but that's what that means. Y-O-U-R, on the other hand, represents possession. It means that you own something. It's the difference between saying, you're beautiful, Y-O-U apostrophe R-E, beautiful, and saying, which means you are beautiful, versus Y-O-U-R, beautiful, which means the beautiful that you own, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but we could fix that by saying, your beautiful car, your beautiful jacket, your beautiful James Blunt song, one of those sorts of things. We can say, your beautiful something. But here we just say, you are beautiful. Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. The next set works in pretty much the same way. It's there, which is very comforting, actually. There. We're going to teach you how to use these common words correctly. It's going to be all right. There is basically like your and your, but with another thing added on to the end to show placement or sort of existence. I'll get to that in a moment. T-H-E-Y-R-E is simply another sort of type of word like Y-O-U-R-E, in that it's a contraction. It's they are smushed together. So we've got that followed by the parallel to Y-O-U-R, T-H-E-I-R, which is they're the thing that they own. And then finally we finish that up with T-H-E-R-E, which is sort of, you can think of it as the companion to the word here. There it is, here it is. Here is a table, there is a table. It's kind of, if you want to use that kind of placement word, it's basically the same, and you can remember that by the fact that it has that root, that here in there. We can clarify that with some examples. Their cars would show possession. It's the cars that belong to them. Then we could say Y apostrophe R-E, cars. They are cars. What are they? Are they speedboats? No, they are cars. They are cars. And finally, we could finish with there. Cars. Over there, on the horizon, here comes the cavalry. The carvalry, in this case. Anyway, so you can see that we've got this possession, then we've got the sort of existence, the contraction, they are this thing, and then finally we've got the placement in space. There, cars. All this is helpful because it allows us to understand our slightly more complicated and confusing its and its case. Like the ones above, the apostrophe here between these two words is used to show that there's a contraction there. It apostrophe s is the same as it is, just like they are, you are, and later on, we are. This can get a little confusing for students because this possessive form, its, this seems to go counter to the rules in English, because typically, when we want to show possession, we say something like, Sam's presentation. And that shows that it's the presentation that I own. It's the presentation that I am giving. So a lot of students assume, not without reason, that its should have an apostrophe to show that the thing belongs to it. But that's not the case with pronouns. Remember that pronouns sort of follow different rules. When we're showing possession with pronouns, we don't put an apostrophe s. Even if we're saying, oh, this book is yours, which you can do, you still don't add an apostrophe there. It's just the word on its own. Pronouns simply follow a different rule set. Frustratingly, I know, but there it is. There it's. Don't say that, that's actually not proper English. The next one down the line is actually quite a bit easier. 2, 2, and 2. They're all very similar and very short, but not too difficult to remember. 2 is simply a preposition. It shows, you're going to someplace, you're coming to someplace, you're bringing the thing to someone else, things like that. 2 with this extra O, and remember that extra O, 2 simply means also. If you can put it in the place of also, you've got the right one. And then finally, TWO, the weird one, that just means 2, the number. Another way to remember 2 is the W in the middle. It's double, it's 2. Maybe try remembering it that way. But these are fairly easy, I think. The next one is kind of odd. It's we're and were. They don't sound exactly the same, but it still is close enough, and the fact that the spelling is identical except for this apostrophe often throws students off. But this is just the same rule as we saw above. You are, they are, it is, we are. That's all that means. Were is simply the past tense of are. They are, they were. You can say, we are going to the fair. We're going. Or you could say, we were going, but then we didn't. And again, the difference is that the apostrophe indicates that it's part of a contraction, just like all these others. Look for the apostrophe, it will serve you well. For is pretty straightforward. It's just like to and to, it's a preposition paired with a number. So it's the difference between I'm doing this for you, I'm making this video for you, student, versus this is our, I think this is our 4th video. It's video number 4, for you. A good way to remember that this is the number 4 is to note that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 letters. So that might help you remember these two. But again, like to and to, they're rather different parts of speech. And I don't actually see this as an error all that often. So that's pretty much the basic homophones. We've got a couple others that are a little odd. Affect versus effect. This confuses everybody. I recently had a student that that had English as a second language, and she said, I always mess affect and effect up. And I said, listen, almost any native English speaker messes this up too. People have so much trouble with this. Affect, like grassroots efforts allow people to affect the world on a local level. That the A one is simply the action. You're affecting something. You're doing something to it. Effect is sort of the results. The Stanford Prison Experiment studied the effects of conformity on the behavior of students. It's a cool experiment. Look it up. It's the effects of conformity, the results of conformity, or the what is derived from conformity, the end product of conformity on the behavior of students. I don't think there's a really good way of remembering this other than simply memorizing it, which is probably part of why people have so much trouble, to be honest. They're odd words, and really the best thing you can do is just try to work with them and keep in mind which one is which. It will get better with practice. The next type is then versus than. This is another one sort of like where and where that they're not really that similar with sound, but they're so similar in spelling that people sometimes mess them up anyway. I would rather have ice cream than brownies. This shows the one with the A is sort of saying, well, you'd prefer one thing over another. I'd rather have ice cream than brownies. Whereas I would rather have ice cream, comma, than brownies. This shows sort of space in time, or position in time. I want to do this, then I want to do this. I want to do this more than I want to do this. Again, this is the kind of thing that it's useful to know. I don't think there's a really good trick for memorizing this other than working with it and trying to keep in mind which is which. And our last one is sort of perennially confusing, that versus who. The trick to remembering this is that who is for people, that is for things. And we actually count animals as things. So let's look at these examples. The students who stood on the beach, that's a person, right? They're people. The pelicans that stood on the beach, typically we refer to animals as though they were objects or as though they were inanimate. I mean, we're not going to be naming these pelicans or giving them personalities. So really, that suffices here. And then finally, the Eastern Island statues that stood on the beach. Even though they have faces, they are not human. They do not have personalities. Therefore, we're just using the inanimate that. It's pretty much as simple as that. Again, this is something you can just remember by simply memorizing who is for people, that is for things. And you can hear that in our language. We don't typically refer to, if we're talking about a bunch of refrigerators, we're not going to be referring to them with a word like who. The refrigerators who kept the vegetables cold, again, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So there's not a whole lot more to say on that versus who. Who is just persons, that is just inanimate objects. So it's pretty much just a matter of drilling yourself and noting in your own writing which one you're using and whether or not it's the correct one. And to help you along with that, we're including a worksheet or a cheat sheet or study sheet, whatever you want to call it, in a link at the bottom of this video. Check it out, download it, keep that by your side, and use it as a way of checking your own writing periodically. And that should help you in no time get to the point where you don't even need to look at a sheet, you just have these things memorized.